There's something deeply unsettling about walking through a place where life once thrived, where laughter, voices, and everyday moments have all vanished, leaving behind only silence and decay. I've explored many forgotten corners of upstate New York, but these ghost towns are different. Each one feels alive in its own strange way, as if the air itself remembers. The houses still stand, but time has stripped them of warmth. The roads lead nowhere, yet somehow, they pull you in. Today, I'll take you through 5 mysterious ghost towns, places where the past refuses to let go. If you enjoy exploring forgotten places and real haunted stories like this, make sure to subscribe, there's a lot more mystery waiting for you. 1. Tahowas, Essex County, New York. It was late October when I first stepped into Tahowas, a forgotten ghost town buried deep in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. The air was cold and still, the kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. The sun was slipping behind the mountains, leaving streaks of gold and gray across the abandoned village. I had read stories about this place, once a mining town full of life, now nothing but memories scattered among the trees, but nothing prepared me for how real it felt standing there. As I walked down the cracked road, I could still see traces of what once was. Rusted machinery lay half buried in the ground, and broken windows stared back at me like hollow eyes. I imagined the workers who once called this place home, their laughter echoing from the iron mines, the sound of metal striking rock, the distant hum of life that now had completely vanished. The cold breeze carried a faint metallic smell, as if the ground still remembered what it used to be. I found an old wooden house near the edge of the forest, its roof half collapsed and the door hanging loose. Inside, everything was covered in dust. A chair, a table, a few old papers scattered on the floor. One paper caught my eye. It had the words, "Tahowas Mine, 1942, printed across the top. I picked it up, and for a moment, I felt like I had opened a small window to the past. I could almost see a man sitting there, writing, unaware that one day his whole world would be swallowed by silence. As darkness began to creep in, I walked toward the old iron mine. The entrance was blocked by rocks, but the air that seeped out was icy cold, like breathing from another time. I don't know why, but I stood there for a long moment, just listening. That's when I heard it, a faint clanging sound, like someone hitting metal deep inside the tunnel. My first thought was that maybe it was an animal or wind, but the sound came again, steady, deliberate. My flashlight flickered for a second, and the sound stopped. The forest went quiet again, too quiet. I told myself it was nothing, maybe an echo from the past, but part of me knew I had heard something real. As I turned to leave, I saw what looked like a shadow move across the old mining tracks. It was gone in a blink, but my heart was pounding so fast I could barely breathe. On my way back, the air felt heavier. The village looked even more lifeless under the moonlight. Yet, there was something peaceful about it, like the town wasn't angry about being forgotten. It just wanted someone to remember that it once existed. I stopped near the road, looked back one last time, and whispered, "You're not forgotten." When I finally left Tahowas that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't leaving alone. The silence followed me for miles, like the ghosts of the past were walking right behind, making sure their story was finally heard. 2. Doodletown, Rockland County, New York. I still remember the first time I went to Doodletown, a ghost town hidden deep inside Bear Mountain State Park. It was early morning, and a thin layer of fog drifted between the trees like smoke. The air smelled of wet earth and pine, and the only sound I could hear was the crunch of dry leaves under my boots. I had read about this place, an old town where families once lived quietly before it was abandoned in the 1960s, but I didn't expect it to feel so alive, even in its silence. The narrow dirt path led me deeper into the woods until I reached what was left of the town. Stone foundations peeked out from under moss and roots, and here and there, you could still see the remains of old steps leading to nowhere. I stopped beside a crumbling stone wall that must have once been part of someone's home. The wall was covered in green moss, and if you looked closely, you could see small initials carved into the stone, someone's memory, frozen in time. I tried to imagine what life here used to be like. Children running around barefoot, mothers hanging clothes outside, the smell of bread coming from kitchen windows. But that peaceful image faded as I realized how quiet everything was now. Not even birds were singing. It felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. Then something strange happened. I heard faint footsteps behind me, soft but steady, like someone walking slowly through the leaves. I turned around, but no one was there. The fog had thickened, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. I told myself it was probably just the echo of my own steps bouncing off the trees. Still, my heartbeat started to race. As I continued down what used to be Doodletown Road, I came across an old cemetery. The headstones were covered in dirt and moss, some tilted, some cracked. One grave caught my attention. It had fresh flowers on it. Bright, red ones. But there was no sign of anyone else around. I crouched down to read the name, but the letters were worn out by time. Just as I reached out to touch the stone, I heard a whisper. A low, drawn-out sound that I couldn't make sense of. It came from somewhere close, maybe from the trees behind me. I froze. The air suddenly felt colder. Every instinct told me to leave, but something kept me standing there. I turned slowly, half expecting to see someone. For a split second, I thought I saw a figure standing at the edge of the fog, small, still, like a child watching. When I blinked, it was gone. I don't know how long I stood there before I finally started walking back. The path out of Doodletown felt longer than before. The fog followed me until I reached the main road, and only then did I realize how tense my body was. When I looked back one last time, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. There were two sets of footprints on the path behind me. One was mine, and one was smaller. Even now, whenever I think about Doodletown, I can still feel that heavy silence, like the town is waiting. Waiting for someone to remember it. 3. Jayville, St. Lawrence County, New York. The road to Jayville wasn't easy to find. It wasn't marked on most maps, and by the time I got there, my GPS had already lost signal. All I could see ahead was a narrow dirt trail leading deep into the forest. The locals I'd asked earlier had warned me. "There's nothing left there," one man said. But something about his tone made me even more curious. Maybe it was the way he looked away after saying it, like he knew more than he wanted to admit. By the time I reached the old mining area, the sky was turning gray. The forest around me was so quiet that even the sound of my footsteps felt too loud. Then, as I stepped onto what must have been the main road of Jayville decades ago, I felt an odd stillness in the air. No birds, no wind, just the sound of silence pressing down on everything. Broken wooden beams and rusted machinery lay scattered across the ground, half covered in ferns. It felt like time had stopped here, and I had accidentally walked into a place the world had forgotten. I followed a set of old mining tracks that disappeared into the woods. My boots crunched over gravel, and somewhere in the distance, I heard what sounded like metal scraping against metal. It was faint, but clear. I froze and waited. The sound came again, 3 sharp clanks, echoing through the trees. I told myself it could be the wind moving something loose, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. The rhythm was too steady. Too human. As I moved closer to the sound, I noticed an opening in the hillside, a collapsed mine shaft, its entrance caved in but still large enough to see inside. The air coming out of it was icy cold, colder than the forest around it. I leaned in a little, shining my flashlight through the gap. The beam caught a rusted helmet lying on the ground, and beside it, something that looked like a miner's pickaxe, still standing upright as if someone had left it there just a moment ago. Then, out of nowhere, a low metallic echo rang out from deep inside the mine. It wasn't wind. It wasn't animals. It sounded like someone hitting rock with a hammer. Once. Twice. Then again. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my light. The air grew heavier, almost thick. I couldn't explain it, but it felt like someone, or something, was watching me from the darkness beyond the rocks. I wanted to leave right away, but when I turned to walk back, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, matching mine step for step. I stopped. The sound stopped too. My heart was racing now, pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I turned around, shining the light in every direction, but there was no one there. Just trees and shadows. By the time I made it back to my car, the forest had already swallowed the path behind me. I didn't look back. But that night, when I got home and emptied my backpack, I found something that made my stomach twist, a small piece of iron ore, cold and heavy, covered in fresh dirt. I didn't remember picking it up. I still keep it on my shelf. Sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I swear I can hear that same metallic clanking sound, coming from somewhere inside my house. Point 4. Lion Mountain, Clinton County, New York. It was a cold afternoon when I finally reached Lion Mountain, a quiet place buried deep in Clinton County, New York. The road leading there was narrow, cracked, and covered in fallen leaves. My car moved slowly, the tires crunching against the gravel as I climbed higher up the hill. There were no sounds, no birds, no wind, just the faint hum of my engine echoing between the trees. I had read stories about this old mining town, how it once thrived, how families lived here for generations, and how it was suddenly left behind when the mines closed. But being there, seeing it with my own eyes, felt completely different. As I stepped out of the car, a chill ran through me. Not just because of the cold, but because the entire place felt frozen in time. The old houses stood empty, their windows shattered and roofs caved in. Rusted mining carts lay scattered across the ground, tangled in weeds. There was a strange smell in the air, a mix of damp earth, rust, and something metallic that made my stomach tighten. I started walking toward the old mining area. The ground was uneven, covered with rocks and old iron pieces. Every few steps, I could hear the crunch of gravel under my boots echoing in the emptiness. I stopped near what looked like the remains of a worker's cabin. The door was gone, and the inside was dark, filled with broken furniture and dust that floated in the beam of my flashlight. On one of the walls, I noticed faint writing scratched into the wood, "Keep the light burning." It looked old, but I couldn't stop staring at it. As the sun began to sink behind the mountains, I decided to explore one last building, an old structure near the mine's entrance. The air inside was colder, heavier. I turned on my flashlight again, and as the beam cut through the darkness, I saw something that made me stop breathing for a moment. Hanging from a nail on the wall was a miner's helmet, still intact, with a cracked glass lamp in front. The strange part was, the light inside it was faintly glowing. I stood completely still, staring at it. My logical mind tried to explain it, maybe it was a reflection, maybe some leftover battery light, but the lamp was clearly broken. Just then, a faint metallic sound echoed from the tunnel behind the building. Tap, 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 like someone slowly hitting rock with a hammer. I turned toward the noise, but the tunnel was too dark to see anything. My flashlight flickered once, then again, and for a split second, I saw what looked like a shadow move deep inside. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer. Just the sound of dripping water and the distant tapping that suddenly stopped. I didn't wait to find out more. I backed away slowly, heart pounding so loud I could feel it in my throat. When I stepped outside, the sky had gone completely dark. I turned off my flashlight, and that's when I saw it. The faint glow of a lamp flickering inside the mine, moving slowly deeper into the mountain, until it vanished. That night, as I drove away from Lion Mountain, I kept checking my rearview mirror. Every now and then, I thought I saw a small light following in the distance. Maybe it was my imagination, or maybe, as that message said on the wall, someone was still keeping the light burning. 5. Pottersville, Old Hamlet Area, Warren County, New York. It was a gray, misty morning when I drove into Pottersville, not the touristy one people think of, but the old hamlet area deep in Warren County, New York. The GPS signal kept flickering as the narrow road twisted between overgrown trees and half-collapsed stone walls. There were no signs, no people, and no sound except the crunch of gravel under my tires. For a second, I wondered if I had already crossed into the past. I parked near what looked like the remains of a stone store, its front completely gone, vines climbing through the open doorframe. The air felt heavy, thick with damp earth and something else, a kind of silence that didn't feel empty but watchful. I stepped out and looked around. Every building seemed frozen mid-sentence, as if the people here had simply walked away one day and never came back. I found what used to be a main road. The line of houses along it stood half buried under moss and roots. One still had curtains hanging inside, shredded, faded yellow, swaying slightly even though there was no wind. As I moved closer, I noticed faint footprints in the mud, small ones, like a child's, leading right up to the door and stopping there. I froze for a moment, feeling that strange pull you get when your body knows something your mind refuses to believe. I pushed the door open gently. The inside smelled like damp wood and old paper. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips, and on one wall, a calendar still hung, 1947. The pages were stuck together, but I could make out the month, November. That's when I heard it, a faint creaking upstairs, slow, steady, like footsteps moving from one side to another. I told myself it was the wind, but the pattern was too deliberate. My flashlight beam shook as I climbed the staircase. The wood groaned under my weight. When I reached the top, I saw a room with an iron bed frame, rusted and broken, and beside it, a small wooden chair turned toward the window. The curtain fluttered, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw the outline of a child sitting there, her head slightly turned as if she'd been waiting for someone. The flashlight flickered, and when I steadied it again, the chair was empty. I stood frozen, my breath visible in the cold air. The silence that followed was absolute, the kind that feels alive. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding so loud it felt like the only sound left in that forgotten town. As I stepped outside, the wind finally picked up, carrying the faintest echo of children's laughter down the empty street. It was distant, but clear enough to send a chill through my spine. I didn't look back when I left Pottersville. Even now, when I think about that sound, I'm not sure if what I heard was a memory of the town itself, or something that never truly left.